Throughout the history of games, we have always had a villain and a superhero. Games and film tend to follow the analogy of yin and yang to portray their characters and their stories. Yin and yang was founded with the forces that make up all aspects of living beings' life. Symbol is split into two, with one side being black and one side being white, both however having a single piece of one another in it, with yin symbolising earth, female energy, passivity, absorption, and darkness, and yang symbolising heaven, male energy, light, activity, and penetration. It creates a balance in the universe to keep peace in check. Every game we grew up with follows bad guy steals girl, hero saves girl, hero gets girl, bad guy defeated. And we're taught this in the Mario games.
So, if I'm meant to root for the good guy, why am I attracted to hot apocalyptic women? Ludonarrative dissonance, ludo meaning game in Latin, is the conflicting games players will face when the game's gameplay doesn't really stand with the storyline. And now, before I get into this, I know it's repetitive and I know you've heard this before, so please do not throw the tomatoes at me, don't boo me, I'm sorry. An example of this would be Uncharted. Consider a storyline that may be about how awful violence is, for it to just turn around and give you an award for killing 1,000 people. The gameplay in Uncharted, which would make us consider that Nathan Drake's a mass murderer, contradicts his loving and likeable persona. The creators of Uncharted, as well as The Last of Us, Naughty Dog, have attempted to address this topic since then. In The Last of Us, characters' personalities are meant to complement their actions. So take for example Joel. He often kills in the most horrific ways just as a defense mechanism. So instead of having people congratulate Joel for being a good person like they do with Nathan Drake, people just avoid him like the plague. In The Last of Us Part 2, the game focuses directly on the cycle of violence. This is heavily suggested by the quote, "Before you embark on a journey of revenge, dig 2 graves." Part 2 is a lot better in calling out ludonarrative dissonance. Until Dawn is an interactive horror game about Wendigos tracking and attacking our main characters, developed by my lord and saviors, Supermassive Games. I love you. In this game, you control 7 out of the 8 characters and make decisions for them based on how you feel in the moment. The game is built around the butterfly effect, where decisions made by the player early on in the game can have a huge effect later on down the line. I'm going to go into depth about Until Dawn, so if you need a spoiler warning 9 years later down the line, here's your spoiler warning now. I'm just warning you. Okay? Josh Washington is the older brother of Beth and Hannah. We are introduced to him as a friendly party animal who wants to get his friends back together again. Josh is later discovered to be the Psycho, a masked madman who sets up saw-like traps to get back at his friends for his sister's death. Putting aside the Wendigos, Josh is obviously the villain of this story, you know, putting his friends through mental and physical torture. So why do we feel bad for him? Josh's story isn't so cut and dry. He may have put them through all of these traps, but he never killed anyone. If we are to put the villain title on Josh, let's look at Mike. He can kill Emily in cold blood and everyone just is happy and forgets about it. Or we can talk about Ashley, who can just lock Chris out of the cabin for no reason whatsoever. And at the end of the game, Sam has the choice to just blow up the cabin and sacrifice everyone without even giving them the chance to get out. The character is loving and caring, but you can make her sacrifice everyone to secure her own safety at the end. See what I did there? Ludonarrative dissonance, baby! Let's relate it back! All the teens in this franchise aren't good people. Unlike the heroes of our story, just committing an act out of pure lack of humanity, Josh is doing what he did for a whole nother reason. His mental illness. In chapter 10, we get an insight of why Josh actually is the way he is. He has been haunted by the visions of his sisters who passed last year. Now, he does not get a pass for what he did just because he's mentally ill, but it does give us a huge indication into why he did what he did. He isn't a killer, he's just confused and grieving. From his files that are scattered throughout the game, it's obvious that he has schizophrenia, a brain disorder in which a person has trouble distinguishing reality from fantasy. This is evident in him addressing his friends as dear friends and fans in his little YouTube video. Josh is a character you can sympathize with due to the fact that he needs medical help that he obviously isn't getting. Finding out his backstory can put us in this really grey area to finding him completely innocent. The real villains of this story is Dr. Hill and the system that failed him. They failed Josh, therefore failing everyone. The butterfly effect. Coming back to the last verse, we put ourselves in Joel's shoes and agree with him on his actions to rescue Ellie. However, in the sequel, The Last of Us Part 2, we are introduced to the character of Abby. As we play as this character as well as Ellie, we finally understand that Ellie and Joel aren't actually good people. This caused a split in the fandom, with people favouring Abby and saying what Ellie has done is wrong and they hate her. These are the people that follow their moral compass. And then on the other side, we have the Ellie supporters. These people will excuse her actions and the way she acts on her feelings. Whereas on this side, people can agree that Abby has done wrong, but they can also agree that Ellie has done wrong. These people just hate people for no reason. They want to support their favourite character, but these people follow their moral compass. In the end, no one is in the right in this series, which makes the game the most realistic portrayal of humanity if they were to ever be put in this kind of situation. Calling these characters villains would be a huge exaggeration. Even if the cure worked in The Last of Us, humanity would be too messed up to go back to the way things were. One user on Reddit said, "I think this is the main reason why I wasn't particularly bothered by Joel's decision to kill his way through the Fireflies and save Ellie. You spend your entire game getting up close and personal with the incredibly savage and brutal state to which humanity has regressed, and it's not like giving them a vaccine would stop them from killing everyone they could get their hands on and taking their stuff. If I were Joel in this position, why would I let someone I love die for the sake of the world of people who wouldn't hesitate to murder me in my sleep?"
28 stab.
To add on to this point, I wanted to briefly bring up Connor from Detroit Become Human and Daniel from Life is Strange 2. You can find Connor on Villains Wiki, which may be a bit confusing if you've only played through the deviated Connor route, but he is a main antagonist of the two other protagonists' story. Daniel is the little brother of Sean, and Sean's the character you play as throughout the game. The game portrays these two as innocent children who unfortunately are victims of racism. However, the game mechanic can let you go down a completely different route, getting rid of your moral compass completely. Going down the morally wrong route can alter Daniel's upbringing. This ends with him being misbehaved and not trusting you, and if this isn't what you wanted, it's what happened. It is all your fault, depending on how you look at it. The reasons I wanted to bring these two up is because Josh and Joel's paths were made for them already. Josh already had his fate set out. He was either death or death, and Joel was death or death, and you couldn't change that about them. There was nothing you could do to help them, nothing you could do to save them. Their fates were already chosen for them. But with these two characters, you can help these characters become better people. Well, not person in Connor's case, but you get what I mean. This choice is up to you. You need to make the decision that's right for you. Again, there is no right or wrong. This is your choice. Just like life. In conclusion, all protagonists have a bad side. And I'm not just talking about games anymore, I'm talking about entertainment industry as a whole. They all have a bad side which makes them more human and likable. And I'm not talking about the mass murderers, I'm talking about the Fleabags, the Will Grahams, the Kurtz, the mentally fucked up of our time. The only character I could think of with no flaws was Superman, who has since been parodied in media and turned into a flawed individual. He has no flesh, and that's why we find the flawed characters compelling and relatable throughout media. So no, we're not rooting for the villains. Don't worry, you're not a bad person. We are just rooting for a character with flesh and humanity. A character that's just like us.